Good morning and welcome to GrainTV.
Good afternoon and welcome to GrainTV.
Good afternoon, welcome to GrainTV today.
Cody, what's your favorite number out of this morning's barrage of data?
Yeah, I'd say that the planting acreage in particular. Good afternoon, welcome to GrainTV. Today is September 16th, and all week long we saw blood roll down LaSalle Street. Brock, can you give a summary of the damage?
Cody, just like how you put it, we did see massive selling across all the agricultural commodities. Corn taking it pretty hard, down 6% this week to the tune of 44.25 cents. Soybeans were down 66.25, and December wheat was down 40.75 for Chicago. Kansas City down 50.75. Massive fund liquidation across the board on all of these commodities.
Yeah, I know funds stepped in at the end of the day, really pushing down each and every one of these commodities. We saw 10,000 contracts sold for corn. We saw 1,000 for soybeans, and we saw 2,000 for wheat. That helped us close, especially for corn, on its low. That really begs the question, how much lower can we go? I know a lot of farmers are probably out there wondering, how much lower are we going to go before we find a little bit of support, maybe a little bit.
And really, there's been a lot of technical damage to both of these charts for corn and soybeans, but in particular, December corn, really we broke through three key support levels. The first being at 738 to 742. We broke that early in the week. Later, we broke 720 to 722. And lastly, the psychological and key technical support level of $7 was broken today, and we ended up at 692 at the end of trade today. So I'm looking at this as a pretty weak technical picture for corn. Fundamentals really aren't there either. We see weak demand on that side. But as far as answering the farmer's question as where is this going to end up, I'm looking at the mid $6 range, $6.50 or so, before we actually see end users come in and start purchasing corn. We're looking at the feed guys, ethanol producers, and then even China stepping back in and buying some of our domestic corn here.
Okay. Yeah, I know for beans, really, I mean, we had that beautiful technical breakout along, a couple weeks ago. It took us up to a nice level, and we came back, tested that $14 support level, and broke right on through it. Once again, a key support level. As a result, a lot of those guys that got in on that technical breakout get stopped out, get washed out, and that really put a lot of pressure on the market going forward. But really, in terms of fundamentals, export demand or lack thereof seems to be the story. Yesterday, we saw South America about 10 cents cheaper, 10 cents more competitive than us in the export market. Early on in the week, we saw December shipments or December sales lost to South America. December, that's our time. Now, that's right after harvest. That is seasonally when we're supposed to be winning those sales. Traders are waiting on the sidelines, speculating how much lower this thing can go, and before we get back to a more reasonable export sales levels. And some people are saying around 50 cents. I think that makes sense. 50 cents puts us down around 13 bucks even, right around the support at the lower side of this channel. There's a good chance you'd see people step in and buy there. I think the real wild card, though, is the freeze. And really, how much damage did the freeze that we saw last night do to the soybeans and corn even in Minnesota and North Dakota, South Dakota? So,
yeah, one of my contacts in the southern Minnesota area actually said that when he woke up, he went out to his thermometer, he saw 27 degrees on the thermometer. So I'm looking at that as very damaging for the soybean crops that were still in the late stages of development, still very green in that area, who are now turning brown and black and starting to really stink up the whole area.
Wow.
With some of that decay. But as you can tell by our map here provided by Planalytics, that we had a significant freeze and frost zone area for most of Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and even as far down as northern Illinois and northern Iowa. So I'm looking at that as a pretty big zone of our growing area that was affected by this frost freeze scenario that happened several hours below that freeze temperature for a greater part of that area. So I'm looking at that as being pretty significant. The thing to take away from this, though, is the full effect of this is not going to be known for 7 to 10 days when we actually start getting some of these crops out of the field and getting the harvests rolling in those areas.
Yeah, a little bit on a different note, just to kind of change gears here. I know the FSA came out with their preventative plant numbers yesterday, and I'm just curious, what were your thoughts on that? Did those numbers meet the expectations that the market had?
They were actually quite a bit lower than what the market was actually anticipating on a preventative plant. They were looking for something quite a bit larger since we didn't really see the acreage that we were looking for on the planted acreage. But something to keep in mind with those planted acreage is that the failed acres are still in there. So that brings up a lot of issues around that Missouri area that flooded, some of the southwest part of Iowa that had some hail damage a couple weeks ago, and also northern Iowa that had some wind damage, and northern Illinois as well. Those areas, we don't know the full effect of that until most likely next month when USDA comes out with their harvested acres report on October 12th.
So just kind of help me through this FSA preventative plant numbers slide that you have here. You're saying that the number right here, the 88,500,000 acres, you're saying that bakes into the fact any flood damage, anything that happened after the actual planting.
Right. No, actually, those acres are still in there. If they got planted, they're counted right now.
Okay.
That will not be revised until the USDA comes out with their harvested acres figure, which will hopefully take out some of those acres that are damaged or won't be harvested, or even the acres that had low yields coming out of Kansas and some of those areas that are only reporting single-digit yields on some of their corn right now. So
it looks like we'll revisit those numbers around October 12th.
Yep. Looks like we got about 3 or 4 weeks before we'll know the full extent of the harvested acres.
All right, folks. We'll mark that on your calendar. That's October 12th. I think that'll pretty much wrap it up today for the week wrap-up. If you have any questions, please give us a call on Monday. We'd be happy to chat with you. If you're interested in some live quotes, some $7 trades, if you're interested in taking marketing into your own hands and executing it in a cheap manner, go ahead and take a demo. You can go to grainhedge.com or give us a call at 866-290-1196. Have a good one.